Today we'll be calculating the slope of a line. We'll be calculating the slope of a graph, and we will use the formula m is equal to rise over run, where m represents slope. We'll also be calculating the slope of a line given 2 points. We'll label the first point x sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2 for the second point, and we'll plug it into the slope formula. M is equal to y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. So we're going to subtract our y's and divide it by our subtracting our x's. So problem 1, here we have a graph. And when I'm calculating the slope of the graph, I'm thinking of rise over run. So before I get started, I look at the graph and I see that from left to right it's falling. So I want to determine what type of slope it's going to be. Is it positive, negative, 0, or undefined? Well, since it's falling, we'll consider it a negative slope. So this is going to be a negative slope. So this is a multiple choice question. So I can go ahead and I can eliminate my 2 positive slopes. So now I need to determine whether this is falls 4 and runs 3, or falls 3 and runs 4. Well, as you can see here, the change in y, to get from here to here, we fall 3 and run 4. So we're always thinking about y over x when we're talking about slope. It's negative, so our slope is negative 3/4, which is this one. All right, number 2, we have another graph. So we're thinking of rise over run, and we're always going to start off by visualizing the 4 types of slope: positive, negative, 0, or undefined. Well, this is a vertical line, and we could calculate the slope using these 2 points, but we can clearly see that it's an undefined slope because it's a vertical line. So B would be our answer. Number 3, we have the points 8, negative 11, and negative 20, negative 2. And we want to determine the slope of the line that runs between these 2 points. So we're going to label the first point, the x and the y. We're going to call this x sub y, x sub 1, and y sub 1. And we're going to call the second point the x value x sub 2 and the y value y sub 2. And now we're going to just plug these numbers into our slope formula. So we're going to take negative 2 minus negative 11, which is plus 11, divided by negative 20 minus 8. And that would leave me in the numerator 9 over the denominator negative 28. So that's the slope of that line, 9 over negative 28. The next example, we have the points 16, negative 2, and negative 12, 15. So we're going to label the first point as x sub 1, y sub 1, and the second point as x sub 2, y sub 2. And now we're going to subtract our y's and divide it by our x's. So we're going to take 15 minus a negative 2 over negative 12 minus 16. And that's going to leave me with a 17, negative 28. Number 5, we have the point 0, negative 8, and negative 3, negative 5, and we're going to find the slope. The first point we're going to call x sub 1 and y sub 1, and the second point we're going to call x sub 2, y sub 2. So now we're going to take these points and plug them into the slope formula. So we're going to take 5 minus a negative 8, which is 5 plus 8, divided by negative 3 minus 0. So 5 plus 8 is 13. Negative 3 minus 0 is negative 3. So the slope of the line that runs between these points is 13 divided by negative 3, or negative 13 thirds. Number 6. Here we have the points negative 3, negative 19, and 2, 0. We're going to call the first point x sub 1, y sub 1, and the second point x sub 2, y sub 2. And now we're going to plug our points into our formula. So we're going to take 0 minus a negative 19 over 2 minus a negative 3. And that's going to give us 19 fifths. So the slope of the line that runs between these 2 points is 19 fifths. Number 7, here we have a graph and we need to determine the slope. So we need to find out what happens from one point to the other. So we're going to think about rise over run, and we're also going to determine before we start whether we have a positive, negative, or a zero or undefined slope. We're here starting from the left and going to the right. Our line falls, so that's a negative slope. So we know our answer is going to be negative. And indeed it is. It falls 2, down 2, and runs 3. So our slope is negative 2 thirds. Number 8, again, is a graph. We need to calculate the slope. The rise over run is what we use with a graph. And from this point to that point. So first we're going to look and determine whether we're going to have a positive, negative, zero, or undefined slope. So from the left to the right, we go up. So we're rising. So that's a positive slope. And from one point to the other, we rise 2 and run 2. So we have a slope of 2 over 2, or 1.